Welcome everyone to this special live Q&A session with Regula Fischer, Reggie. I hope I'm not butchering your name. I'm sorry about that, but I'm super excited to be able to have this discussion and hopefully get some questions answered about her presentation topic, which is all about many firsts. So I'm really excited to have Reggie on the panel. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so
I'm sure we will create a powerful fest together today.
yeah, I know that you're all about that, and I love that. So let's get into your presentation. Maybe just give us a brief overview of, what you cover there for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, so I've been living the many firsts lifestyle for a few years now, and it has been a game changer for me. The way I lived a number of years ago was it happened that one day I became aware that some situations seemed to be repeating themselves. There were breakups with long-term partners, for example, that finished in very similar ways, or it was just in general about how I felt about life. Today, now looking back, I would describe myself as I've put myself again and again into a victim state, just thinking, why is this happening to me? Why can't I do this? Why is this not la la? And when I became aware of that, I noticed that I seem to have been going a bit in circles, and I started to think about how to break out of these circles or cycles that I would not want to repeat themselves anymore. And that's where I realized, oh, I would probably need new approaches, new ways of thinking. And that's what I came to call first times, right? So I started really to become aware and to actively create new responses, for example, to something that I encountered. And I very quickly realized that this has a very playful character, that it's really like a bit like a game, and that it also helps me celebrate my own progress. And that's basically, I think I did not share that personal aspect of the story in the presentation. But what then happened for me was that I started to become curious why I was so attracted to the many firsts lifestyle. Because what I started to do and what I kept doing for myself over and over again is basically putting myself into discomfort, yeah, into situations that are new. And I was wondering, this is not really making sense. I mean, why would one find joy in the end in putting oneself into uncomfortable situations? And that's when I started to do research, and a lot of these led me into the direction of happiness and sustainable happiness, as opposed to just having peak moments of happiness. I think we all have these moments where we would like to hug the world, but I started wondering, how can I bring up my foundational feeling in life away from that victimhood and anxiety into a stable trust and resilience and happy state? And that's where I realized that discomfort is actually connected to sustainable happiness, because through putting ourselves into uncomfortable situations over and over again, we build resilience. And the more resilience we have, the more we kind of bring up our happiness foundation into kind of higher levels. Because in the end, once our very basic needs are covered, basic needs like food, shelter, and water, air, and so on, very quickly, what we crave, what our souls crave, is growth and learning. And of course, this only happens through newness, through new situations, through firsts, right? So I started to understand the connection. And that's why in the presentation and in the workshop, I focused on resilience as a key pillar, and courage that we need again and again to get ourselves into these uncomfortable situations. But that in the end, there's no way around exposing ourselves to discomfort if we want to have sustainable happiness in our lives. And also what it brings is a sense of adventure, and that's another thing that we all crave. If our life is too routine, we start to feel stuck. So with many firsts, what we bring in is a sense of adventure, again, something that our soul craves. I know this is a bit different from how exactly I went in the presentation, but in a nutshell, that's the essence of the many firsts lifestyle.
I love it. So it's all about building resilience. So I'm curious, and I love just pushing back because I know there are people that are going to be watching this, and they're going to say or think to themselves, "Yeah, that works great for you, but my situation is different." Or maybe they're feeling like, my life is hard enough. Why would I add more things to complicate it or to make my life difficult? So what do you say to those people that maybe have those types of thoughts?
Mhm. So one thing is if we feel that there's hardship, right? It's I think one step is to monitor what of that might be our kind of repetitive thinking, saying like or also behavior, like is it that we do not get enough sleep over a longer period of time, or again and again, it's something that we kind of follow a routine of lack of sleep. And if that then leads to us feeling more kind of low, then I think it is time to really, and possible for everyone and anyone to just focus on a little bit more sleep. It can be 5-10 minutes a day, a night, or even a week that we do it is really, I think the power of the many first approach is that it can really be tailored to your situation. If nothing much is possible, then start really, really minimally small, maybe just with taking one deep breath a day, one deep conscious breath a day. It can be just, yeah, really absolutely tailored. And that's where I think, especially if we have gone through longer phases of hardship, I think we sometimes start to lose faith that it's possible for us, right? And unfortunately, it's an uncomfortable truth. And that's maybe the first step to face that, to accept that usually it's not that anyone would come and save us or change our life for us. It really takes us to take these first steps, and they can be minimal, really minimal. That's what I would suggest.
I love that. So it doesn't have to be anything monumental or anything that is overburdening because yeah, I mean as you pointed out, I mean just that little step can eventually lead to bigger things. So I love that, just starting small. I'm curious, so you have kind of this within your presentation, you have the change curve that you've kind of outlined, and you have all of these different points on this curve, beginning with shock and denial, frustration, and then the valley of despair, uh, going into depression. I think that's so fascinating because that it feels like that when you are in that depressed state, like there is no hope and you're just struggling to maybe get out of bed sometimes, right? So I'm really curious, and I know you go into it in the presentation, but um, you use many first as a way to circumvent that valley of despair. And so
Mhm.
maybe walk people through that process of how that can help there.
hmm I mean, naturally, as human beings, we prefer comfort, right, to discomfort. We prefer security, safety. And if we live in a, let's say, a routined setup where our days look similar, our thoughts are similar, what we experience emotionally is similar, maybe what we earn and spend financially is similar day after day, as also maybe where we are geographically is stable. Stability is good, so please don't get me wrong on that one. It's just that if it's just or mostly that's when we start to swirl and feel stuck, right? So it takes, as so often, this famous balance, or at least maybe sometimes also a bit of an increase of the aliveness of the non-familiar, as scary as it might be. And with the valley of despair, what we sometimes forget when we're in that valley is that we do have the courage, we do have the resilience. We start to lose trust in that, or we forgot because it's maybe too long ago since we last consciously had that feeling in us. If we live the many firsts lifestyle, we never get out of the experimental approach to life. We make it a habit to explore first. So we're used to being in uncomfortable situations, in situations where we take courageous steps. And again, they can be small. They can be like here where I live, people are not always very open to just chat with someone in the street or in a shop. These can be courageous steps, right? To just start an engaging conversation with a stranger, for example, or just bring a smile to someone's face because we smiled at them. So these can all be first. We can be really creative and innovative with these. So as long as we live in that, this is basically the experimental phase is the phase that comes after the valley of despair. This is once we start seeing the light. This is once we are more comfortable and more courageous to actually approach what's new and to eventually even embrace and then integrate it. So the shortcut and the way to circumvent the valley is to stay in that experimental mindset, like basically day in, day out. And of course, there are days when even I do not consciously create a first time. But I think most people that I know that have started to use many first in their life are really becoming it's becoming second nature, right? It's just something you do. You try to say a new phrase. You want to not react in the way you reacted maybe in the past. And the more you practice that, the more you will, the less deep you will go, or the less long you will stay in a depressed state. It still happens, right? We're all human, but you can recover again. That is then connected again to resilience. You can bounce back much faster, and you have much more faith, and unshakable faith that it will pass, and that it will pass soon. That's
I
basically.
I think this is so fascinating to me, and I mean I see the power of it, and I what it makes me think about is how it's kind of like changing the channel, right? If in your brain you're focused on these negative feelings, right? Like it's almost as if you're turning a switch on and you're redirecting attention or something of that nature, and you're saying, "Hey, look over here instead." And it almost seems like a form of distracting yourself in a healthy way from being focused on, your problems or whatever's keeping you in that depressed state. So I think that's brilliant. And it's we kind of do that with our kids all the time. We're like, well, like whenever they have an issue, we try and put them in front of something else or give them a new toy or whatever it is. Like, and so that's kind of what it brings to mind is that you're just shifting your focus in a way that is constantly looking to something else outside of yourself. And I think that's really powerful. I don't know, is that how you kind of see it,
Yeah.
or am
Yeah,
I way
and
off?
yeah, no, 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 exactly. And what you're saying in terms of distraction, when we're kids, we get that, right? Others, like our parents, cater that for us, but it's part of adulthood, of becoming a responsible adult, that we are responsible for that for ourselves. So it's our responsibility. We need to take ownership of that. It's also part of the maturity journey, right? That we are able to do that for ourselves. Of course, it's nice if we get support from others. We all still want to feel connected also as adults, but in the end, we need to be able to create it from within ourselves. And with that, we can also inspire others, which is another powerful thing. And you also mentioned healthy firsts. Of course, we can also create firsts that are not healthy, right? So it's really important in the many first lifestyle, as we understand it, it is really about creating healthy, meaningful firsts that take us in a direction of the way of the life that we want to lead, or of the version of ourselves that we want to see or become or be ideally. And also yeah, that are just helpful. And again, there we also need this piece of patience, because some things may not change overnight, especially as we stay with ourselves all the time. We may sometimes not even notice that there's progress, right? That's why I think it's really powerful to keep a file or something where you log your firsts every now and then. It doesn't need to be all the time, but you will see how these firsts change in nature over time, and how much more courageous and resilient you yourself become.
I love the idea of tracking that and taking note of maybe how it impacts your life. I think that sounds powerful. It makes me want to put a
Mhm.
spreadsheet together right now and start tracking. Okay, you said something about how, obviously these first have to be positive because there is this part of me that thinks about the movie, I don't know if you've seen it, Yes Man, where it's Jim Carrey movie where he says yes to anything, and that's kind of the rule. He just whatever comes, he has to say yes to. And
Mm.
obviously that situation, if you were of that mindset, it would invite a lot of potentially harmful or negative things into your life. And so you're very clear on this having to be, saying yes to these firsts that are healthy, that are positive, that are going to be, helping you build the life that you want, and not just for the sake of saying yes, right?
Exactly. And not just for the sake of creating a first, because again, it could mean, I don't know, use a drug for the first time. I mean, a drug that is harmful, or get really drunk for the first time. That's not necessarily, not even not necessarily. It's not what we mean. Yeah, with the many first lifestyle.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify because I don't
Yeah.
want anyone to get the wrong message, and I don't think you've conveyed that at all. I think your presentation is perfect.
And
Um,
by the way, about that, what you mentioned, saying yes to everything, I think for many of us, or maybe I'm projecting, because definitely for me, it's still the first where I say no that I'm practicing, because often this
yeah.
is really more difficult for many of us, that we, especially if we're more like people pleasing types, that yeah, that for me it's the power of saying no for the first time, that's healthy in that sense. Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that because that is so important. I think, as you said, for those of us who are constantly giving of our time and depleting ourselves in that sense, to just be able to say, no, I need time for me,
Yeah.
and being okay. I think that's powerful as well. I'm glad that you got into that. Let's talk about celebrating first. Like, what do you do to celebrate and reinforce this idea of,
Mm.
continuing with your many firsts?
What's interesting for me, what has come big time into my life with the manifest approach to life is basically gratitude, interestingly, because um, I'm just grateful for growth. I'm grateful for new experiences. I'm grateful for adventure. And this may be a little bit of a digression, but you mentioned your children, right? It's like as children, we have firsts all the time. And if we look at children, I think many times they're quite excited about first times, right? They want to grow, they want to explore. And of course, adulthood is obviously not childhood anymore, so it should be different in some way. But still, I think we can learn a lot from children in that respect. Yeah, so we were talking about, sorry,
Yeah.
what was the,
Oh, I love that. I would just to piggyback off of that real quick. It does make me think about those people who maybe feel, and we were having a discussion with someone else kind of along similar lines of this, where there are some people that just feel obligated to put away the childish things, right? And just focus on work because they feel like that is their role in life, is to just, kind of put on the blinders and put their head down and just grind away at their job because their self-worth is in their ability to provide for their family. And
yeah.
so they only see, I need to work harder and I need to just be more focused on this and not deviate and not go into these other things or not try new things, right? So what would you say to someone of that mindset?
Yeah, it was also for me, again, an uncomfortable truth to accept and understand, that my calendar, my time, it's just me in the end who owns that, right? And if I give away the power to others, to institutions, to corporations, and so on, to manage that for me, I do think in my case, again, I'm speaking from my own experience, this led to a lot of frustration and dissatisfaction, right? I felt like I'm like a ball thrown in, or a feather blowing in the wind, If someone says stay in tonight, I'll stay in tonight, meaning at work. Or I felt like powerless and often also helpless. And that's what in the end increased my anxiety because I was really anxious for many years. And very much I always felt I needed to be in control, that and that also was basically because I gave the power away to others. I became defensive very quickly because I was already very thinly spread, right? I was already very vulnerable and felt like, oh, if there's another thing coming now, it's already too much, right? So that led to that. And in that sense, I think for such a situation, it really takes these courageous times or situations or moments or leaps where we just say no and look what happens. Because I bet in most cases, nothing bad happens, nothing that we would label bad. And even if it looks bad at first, but if we look back a little later, we may understand that it had to happen exactly in that way. In any case, it may be a first time. So our courageous step to say, no, tonight I cannot stay. I have a commitment, and leave and see what happens. And of course, people who may be used to us being in a certain way may be surprised, may even be irritated. But if that's what they are, then eventually in the mid and long term, we would probably not want to stay around these people. And we will learn that, we will find that out as we go. But in the first place, it is maybe a little bit about shocking others. But I think what happens at the same time is that we surprise ourselves and we stand in for ourselves. And it's like a little plant. It will grow and grow and grow, our self-confidence, our self-worth. And again, it won't happen overnight, but this is not about peak moments of dopamine or happiness or satisfaction, which we may find after a too long day at work, where we are so unhappy basically with our lives, if we're honest, and just hang out in front of TV, Netflix, whatever, maybe, watching things that numb us or that give us the impression that at least for a little bit we're happy. But if we have the courage to just start with facing that truth, that we probably want more from life, then there's no way around taking these first courageous steps. And yes, it may be hard at times, but again, back to what I said a few moments or minutes ago, sustainable long-term happiness and increased levels of happiness only come with discomfort. There's no way around it. But I suggest to start small and to surprise yourself again and again, just with a no. And even what I had in my experience a lot in the beginning was I didn't have the language. I didn't have the tone, the style to convey to people in a respectful way that this time my answer is different. In the beginning, it came, it burst out like too strongly, or I was silent suddenly and didn't have the words, even though I was very sure today I will tell this person that no, this is no longer possible for me. In the end, I couldn't do it, for example. Then I was frustrated. Then I tried again. So it's again, it's not always easy, but in the end, it creates these moments that make the stories of our life. Because what am I telling today? What am I sharing today? It's exactly these moments, right? So this has created my whole life that I have today, which I'm so grateful for, and I would never ever want to change again to how it was some years ago. But yeah, it somewhere we have to start. No one will take this from us.
I love the whole idea of, recognizing that you can make a different choice. You don't have to continue on the path that you're on. You can, at any point, you can, have your
Yes.
first time to say no, a first time to respond differently. This whole concept is incredibly important. It's been really valuable in my life as I've looked back. There have been plenty of moments where I've
Mm-hmm.
had to make a different choice, where I've had to realize, like, I'm not content here anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to do something new and different. I have to, and that is risky. That, it does create a sense of fear, but I think the power is in um getting to the other side of that, in overcoming that fear, right? And so I mean, there's so much here that I really love. The question that I wanted to ask earlier was about how you celebrate the first,
Oh,
and
yeah,
what you do
exactly. The
to continue to
gratitude.
reinforce this idea
Yeah.
of, taking those steps.
Yeah, that's where I digressed into the children, I think, and as role models. Yeah, celebrating because I came in with gratitude, right? So, I just created a whole new awareness for me, many first, right? The awareness that I have a mind that functions, I have a brain that works, I have a body that lets me try new things also physically, you know? So yeah, through moments of gratitude where I really become still or where I'm in awe, I'm just in awe. I'm very aware of these moments, and there's more and more of these moments, and I often call them magical even. It's yeah, the more I have been practicing many firsts, the more there are these moments of pure just gratitude. I'm just full of gratitude. And that's when I kind of hold still for a moment, yeah, and just appreciate life. And so that's basically how I celebrate today. In many also when I look back, you know, many times, like right now, I'm the director, the lead of this musical production, where if you had told me 2 years ago that this would be me, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have known how to make this happen. But here I am 2 years later, and that's also when I celebrate. You know, again, it's maybe not overnight, but when I just become aware that wow, this has been possible because I took these courageous steps and because I was uncomfortable, yes, again and again, but also that becomes more comfortable or more again I have more and more faith that I will just be able to deal with that and to manage through discomfort and so yeah, that's basically looking back, really creating these moments or looking at my list of many firsts and how it's growing. It's moments I have not had a big celebration out there somewhere, you know. It's really personal, just me with myself, and again it has a lot to do with an increased self-worth and self-confidence so that I can just enjoy that for myself, with myself, that feeling that things are moving in my life and they're moving in a good direction.
I love that because so often when we talk about celebrating things, you'll hear, yeah, you need to go buy yourself something or you need to go throw a party or something like that. And it really doesn't have to be. It can be a very personal just reflection on your gratitude. And I think that is that I mean for me that's that resonates because I maybe because I'm more introverted anyway, but I think that's more special, you know, to be able to reflect and I'm a believer of God and so maybe that's a factor here, you know, but I reflect on maybe what he's done for me and I don't know if you're religious at all or how you interpret that, but that's kind of how I, you know, think about that and I just feel blessed and that is rewarding to
Mhm.
reflect and celebrate in that way. So I just really appreciate you pointing that out.
Thank you. I'm glad to see and hear that. And yeah, it is very much for me connected to a feeling of being blessed and this faith, right? Faith in oneself, in life, in the universe, in that we're taken care of, and that also I can contribute to taking care of myself at that in that sense, and that I would know how to do that. And more, I have to say, recently, it's a lot for me about intuition. So like really an inner knowing and just yeah becoming more and more connected to intuition also and to just know or to just have faith, you know. It's so powerful because I really know in the meantime that I could be standing here in the storm, and yes, the storm can come and storm is part of nature and of life, but I know I have the faith that I will be okay.
I love that. I love that. We unfortunately, I want to be respectful of your time, and we're kind of coming up on our limit. Um, where can people go to connect with you? And we do have your speaker profile on our website, and you know, if wherever you're listening to this, we'll have links, I'm sure, in the description. So go there. But what do you want to share with people? Where can people find you?
Yeah, definitely on Instagram. We also launched a Many Firsts Instagram account. And otherwise, it's on my personal Instagram where it's all about firsts as well and how I see the world, which is Reguli_Fischer. on Instagram. Then we have the Manifest podcast, where I again and again talk to wonderful guests who share their firsts, and I find that very inspiring. It also creates this sense of community. You know, we obviously see we're not the only ones struggling at times and exposing ourselves over and over again to discomfort. But in the end, these are the stories we tell, and we want stories. That's where basically Netflix and the whole industry comes in, right? We want stories, and imagine how powerful and fulfilling it also can be if you tell your stories, you know, and inspire others with that. Because I do think also to overall create or make this world a better, healthier place, and even better, even healthier place, we need people who take courageous steps to move us in the right direction. So it's very relevant.
I love that. That is a perfect way to end this. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here,
you.
Reggie, and for anyone listening. We really appreciate you. Um, yeah, I hope everyone has an amazing day, and we'll catch you in the next session.
Yeah, the next first time.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end it right there.
Thank